pictures, you can see it right next to the fence, but that,
I believe she came in for the variance, that neighbor.
That was last meeting, I believe.
It was
Maybe
2 meetings ago.
before.
It was 2 meetings
yeah,
ago.
it was
I think.
2 meetings ago.
Oh,
So this was 3 square feet less. This would be okay?
Yeah, so the, there's a few things in there with the 200 square foot. That's what drives it from being a 3-foot setback to a 7.5-foot setback.
Okay.
So this is still only set back 1.1 feet. So even if it was a few square feet shorter, it would still not meet setback requirements. In addition to that, the easement is there in easements. The setback is something that's applied to every single property across the entire city, regardless. I mean, so if you've got an accessory structure going in, wherever you live, if it's under 200 square foot, the minimum can be set back is 3 feet. If it's over 200 square foot, the minimum can set back is 7.5 feet. That's from side property lines. In certain locations, there are the easements on the property. Some of them are 5 feet, some of them are 10 feet, there's some of them that are 20 feet. And those restrict any building whatsoever in them, regardless of the setback. So that's where it does get kind of confusing when you're talking about, oh, it doesn't meet the 5 foot, it doesn't meet the 7.5 foot. It's just right now, it's not meeting either one of those, but both of those are an issue. They'll be an issue even if it was smaller.
But the short answer is, yeah, that's Peggy's carport. We're supposed to represent her carport.
Is that a violation?
Ultimately, I mean,
At the owner's
it's whether it's movable, removable, thing is removable. Basically, that's what's in here, and it's even, you know, with any of these, you know, regardless of how it's put in, if it's in an easement, whatever, the city's going to reserve that piece of property if the city needs to. However, that would be done. You know, unbolted, and you get enough people out there to pick it up and move. I don't know. It's really just, it's there is what the concern is, whether it's movable or not.
Okay.
Just for clarification too, the same easement was the easement the neighbor also had at the meeting 2 meetings ago. And she also is, it's in her order as well. It says she has to remove it if the city ever asks her to remove it, or they'll remove it for her. Mr. Neri, the public's now going to speak on your issue, unless you have anything more to say at this point. So, well, you'll have a closing argument chance before. You can sit down if you want. That
I don't know what to do.
and ma'am, you have to come up here and give your full name for the record. So.
I'm Danica Cannell. I live at 39 Bay Drive, or part-time there. I'm diagonal from Sharon. She's done a lot of beautiful work on her property. She's lifted the look of the neighborhood on the side of the street that's not white. As she mentioned, the roof used to be flat. It had that old 1950s look. The neighbor 1 foot or 7 feet from the property. We're all happy with what she's done, and I'm just here to say that as a neighbor, I would be good with the variance. The whatever. Yes, say yes. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And
Anything else? So,
y'all can deliberate now.
yeah, do you want to discuss anything?
Actually, I think Mr. Neri did say have a closing argument. Do you want to?
No, I just,
Sometimes maybe there's not what needs to be said, Mr. And you might be able to answer any questions they ask you.
okay. I just worked really hard to make this a really nice home and make it pretty attractive to the neighborhood. I want a home. And I just,
Do you want to talk about anything? Anyway?
I think
Anything
part
else?
of
All right. Do we have a motion?
Say that they would, she would include the engineering survey for the wind?
This is just for a variance
So that's not
Yeah.
included?
Not in this, that'd be in the permit.
of the city and what we're trying to do. Go ahead. That's all.
Any further discussion?
I don't have anything else to say. I mean, I agree, but that's not there anymore.
I mean, it kind of is here. So,
Yeah.
to me,
Else want to say anything, or we can vote? We already have a mover. Second. So,
Yeah, I just have to manually do one. That. It won't take Ms. Wilson's vote, so we have, 6 in favor, 6 ayes. That would pass. To
And I guess
deny it.
if you can't record, I guess who are the nays? Who are the
That-
Yeah, just,
Ms. Wilson. Jamie and Janet
so we're
are the nays.
2,
Yes, it passes 6-2.
6. Okay, motion passed 6-2.
we have to move to the next variance hearing.
Is Jay Ghosh. On December 16, 2022, a permit was issued for the construction of a new single-family dwelling at that address. And at the time, there was a short picket fence located behind a row of hedges that in your back there. Fence were located in public right-of-way. During construction, the hedges and fences were removed. You can see the current picture with the new fence and shrubs removed. On 31st, 2020, Inc. applied for a fence attachment requirements, and that is also attached with their proposals where they were going to put the fence, and all of that did meet. On August 14th, the property owner applied for a variance, though, to construct a new as the previously fence. At or inside the property states, quote, on each side of the outside of the property. The LDC 5.1.8A5 states triangle shall be provided. The minimum dimensions of the driveway side. The clear visibility, an example of what that looks like later on. Again, the purpose of a variance is to provide a means to grant standards of the zone, unique characteristics, and again, improve conditions. The law will make a positive finding of the following provisions. That this property is a the property owner provisions in the land of approximately 0.8 acres in size and is rectangular shaped with the exception has a turnaround location. Property is larger than most of the property owner, and by that I mean that the on, at, or inside a property line between two properties or a property line adjacent. We apply as adjacent to. Not the result of actions of the property owner. Previously stated, the submitted site plan for the development sites we apply to everyone regardless of the property. and that is a standard for all zoning districts, not just zoning districts. Next is that the minimum staff does not variance is needed here or warranted use of this land. Plants can be located on and variance shall ensure compatible development with the uses of surrounding neighborhoods. Staff does not believe that it would, whatever is appropriate from the code enforcement side on that one. The proposed variance is consistent with the intents and provisions of the comprehensive plan and conservation of existing and future rights of ways. And again, as that's depicted there, the intent of that is if you have the edge of the road, 15 feet back from the edge of that road, not the property lines, but the edge of the actual asphalt.
Can we discuss that? Is there discussion at this point
Sure.
about that?
Sure.
Can you let
It's over there.
It's
This
public-
is right on the.
It's a public,
There's
it's
the
a public water right away. There's a little thing to say that it might pose a danger if you have
Agreed.
the public accessing that beachway right there.
I just felt, it is not necessarily a typical road traffic all the time on there. That's why I mentioned it, that yes, it is a potential for vehicles to be. EPA shall make the following findings when a variance is requested in the area of hazard. This property is located in an AE10, AE11 flood zones. The AE means it's coastal flooding, danger to public safety from the materials. Staff does not necessarily feel that would cause a danger. The fence is located in the right of way. Property. And staff finds this will not cause a danger to life or property, that its contents are not susceptible, and that's not. Next, whether facility services to the public provided by the facility, which is not. The facility requires a water station in the back from water state bodies are allowed 10 foot. Use and as property is covered in an AE flood zone, there's really no location you could put on that would not be in that flood zone. Next would be whether or not the property can be maintained. I believe that the location would be advantageous either way for this one. Hardship and its velocity. I do not believe that's applicable to the comprehensive plan in addition to the land development code. Approves or denies the application, then findings as to each of the factors listed in section 8.2.2 of the land development code will need to be made on the record. Pending questions.
How far? Right away.
I don't really have specifics proposed just yet. Like I said the fence application that came in showed where it was. Mr. Ghosh indicated he has a survey from before he bought the property that may show where that fence is exactly. Formal application we've received for the fence.
I have a procedural question, Jeff.
Yeah.
This is my neighborhood. I already got the notice of here. Do I need to abstain? Or?
It still affects the general.
Were any of the fences that were legal? Was there any that were?
Row of hedges and picket fence and I believe that was in the right of way at that point there.
An illegal fence?
It was put up, I believe, probably but like I said, that has been removed at this point in time. So it considered an existing nonconformity potentially. Yes, so in the final order on this one, and on there, it takes the city council to do grant the allowable use of the right-of-way, and very similar variances granted that moved the owner's expense. Proper curb is just at the end of the street.
Right.
That's what this is based off of. So it really just as to if that makes sense. Utility pole because it is a potential right of way.
Obviously, something puts up this planter right on the corner. Something similar to what you're talking about?
Potentially. If
it
it's rocks or something like that, yeah, that would be, we could permit in there. When it becomes like a structure, that's when it gets a little bit different.
Put a fence there.
Correct.
Obstructing view because it's aluminum.
That's correct. I mean, the code requires this to be or inside a property. Many requests for some of the ones that have very, Hollywood Boulevard.
If you ever wanted to put sidewalks in, that would fall.
Huge right of way. From the edge of the property, sometimes there's 40 property. That's where like utilities are run, sidewalks are built. All of those types of things are done in those areas. And that's where the city does like.
So looking at Exhibit B.
Something that code enforcement could theoretically get involved in that. If it's obstructing and causing an issue, it can. Don't if it's not caused by property owner. So they're typically not, necessarily typically more when it's is proven to be an issue.
That wooden pole, that's the outhouse porta potty, is that?
So the dark line, the proposed plan on where this fence would be, the request, the original fence, or we can go along those lines. The paver driveway, the asphalt actual road of Hood Drive.
You can actually, if you look really closely at the survey, the boundary line actually by the street is dashed, looks like, and
Is that the,
brick column right there. And Mr. Ghosh can probably testify to this and show you, I believe.
The solid, that's not part of this permit. That part of the fence is there in existence right now.
So this drawing is showing the
Property line, the dash line variance to put it back where the
not this
to
drawing.
not do.
Okay.
Sorry.
I don't, this fence survey, it looks perfect.
Mr. Gibson, say Mr. Ghosh has the location of the original fence.
He mentioned he had actually seen it.
Well, if you look at
That's line on there, you can see that.
A, but if you look at Exhibit,
I mean, like I said, I live in this neighborhood and it's right on the road. I mean, sometimes before we're overgrown.
and he's asking to put the
Back with it.
Back on the
But
street.
into the city.
It is
I'm a very
not-
visual
little part
We're
here.
watching you,
But the rest of this,
you know?
Yeah, there's a survey on there, but it doesn't apply.
clarify, we were kind of offline there. Talking with Mr. Original survey, property was there. The original fence line, it doesn't indicate, but I'll say it's less than halfway between the right-of-way and the property line is where the original fence was located on there. Probably, you know, we moved out into the right-of-way.
Let me ask you, or Tim, the rest of the.
Most of the setback, Mr. Ghosh indicated his neighbor site plan there. You can see the little dashes with the X's in there. That indicates to his the neighbor just north of him.
That's right.
What's that?
That's all.
Yes. That put in, it was not done with this. So yes, that one is there, but it's equally going to be an issue as well. That's not allowed. It was not done with a permit. Code enforcement will be there, and I don't believe it will be allowed to be there either.
So I bought this property in 2019, and I have owners who owned it from 1950. The fence, part of it was the cities around the water, all the way to Brook Street, and took a they were the original homeowner to the city to create more park. If I'm gonna make a difference on my own. Getting there is a risk. I mean, nobody was happier than side of the street when there's more light and human. There's always 4 or 5 cars at what to do at the public park. You know, so fence, very visible. This 10 or 11. I'm going to ask him because he's my builder.
Come to come up. Right hand. Okay. And ask your full name for the record.
My name is Tim Nielsen, somewhere around 15 feet apart. And I also live down the street, and the head covers a lot of walkers. So in my personal opinion, Mr. Ghosh.
Last time we passed them around,
Which photo?
the ones that,
Just pass these ones here.
okay. That one on.
Mr. Ghosh, each of the pictures, you'll leave them so the city clerk can copy.
Little,
Sometimes in the cul-de-sac, sometimes in the middle of the cul-de-sac, you know, sometimes on the sand.
Up in the morning?
Mr. Ghosh.
I don't want to disrupt.
Sir, you can speak.
Yeah, Fort Walton Beach before COVID, when it was really bad, we did a very good job monitoring.
I know that I seen, and I can speak for that too, because I know I walk my dog down there, and sometimes if I go 4 or 5, let's say 6 in the morning.
It does look definitely better with the hedges and stuff. The city's concern on this is in the actual right of
And
way.
also,
And what we need to do to protect those rights of ways is really the city's concern on that.
also,
The property is 10 feet to the pin.
Can you, I'm sorry,
Backside of the cement curb. We are proposing to only move 4 feet. That will line up with the wooden fence that's on there. And it will line up with the wooden fence on the south end of the property. You will still be approximately 6 feet from.
much to the city, the wooden fence on the south side of the property, we grass on the other side of the fence. You know,
That one, so that is actually in our code of ordinances, section 5.1. talks about the grass, uncultivated vegetation, and it is the requirement of owners of properties to maintain the property between their property line and their, wherever this fence is required, it's still going to be ability to keep that mowed, whether right away.
Him permission to build his pool, which goes all the way to the old fence line. And here are pictures to prove that too. So these were down.
When was that? Do we know?
A couple years ago, I
Is
don't know
that
exactly when.
across the
I can't tell you if it was permitted a certain way and built a different way. I don't have the details of that. I can just tell you that there's minimum setback requirements, not just on at or up to the property line, even there's setback
Well,
requirements.
this
for
don't
the
go into
pool.
maybe the neighbors do.
And that's a possibility. The flat work may have extended out there because we do the specific permit immediate out there. Neighbors get put in a later time, and everything.
Just be careful, yeah.
So each end gets one.
That's the fence on the south side of the property.
I
Close to the
don't know
wall.
that this is even in this, but I would like to ask you, do you have an alarm on this pool?
That's not his pool.
It's not
That's
his
not
pool.
your,
No.
No, that's not my pool.
Oh, that is, I'm sorry, yes, that is.
No, that's
you're
not,
looking.
that's not my pool.
No, they're showing.
Yes, there's an alarm.
okay. I was just wondering, when we see going through dumpsters and vagrants trying to sleep in areas now again, and God, I'm just, people trying to
Well, that's
share.
really the primary reason I'm spending the money to build a fence halfway through my property, because I have a pool on the front of my house, between the house and.
I have a question for staff. Expect emergency personnel, fire trucks, et cetera, from coming down and turning?
I can't specifically answer that. Obviously, I'm not with the fire department or PD. I don't anticipate that would cause anything. But again, I would say that's with everything at present right now. But again, I'm just going to reiterate staff's concern over the protection of the right-of-ways. I mean, that's written into our comprehensive plan and everything else that we deny people all the time structures in right-of-way. We have had people, have to move. It's not something that we would even typically entertain. If somebody comes in and says, hey, I want to do this, it's just going to be a hard no right from the get-go from us. Because it's not your property. And, just like we wouldn't approve you to build 5 feet onto your neighbor's property, it's the same thing, except the property belongs to the city. That's the concern.
Additionally, the permitting review whether or not there's a life safety issue like you just brought up, and whether or not and they might not issue a permit if that's a future determination. Today, y'all are just deciding can you put it there or not, and so the life safety thing will be on the permitting
Okay.
portion. So.
Thank you.
Questions? More questions? Discussion?
I think my only concern is if there's a sidewalk put in, or if the city wanted to put up or something, or fiber line being ran, or anything else like that.
Yeah.
That would
And my comment would be then the precedents as well.
My concern would be more that somebody comes barreling down there, they're going to hit the fence anyway. But I mean, if you don't have that 5 feet extra, I mean, I've seen them running houses.
mailboxes.
This morning,
And I, real quick, are you done, Mr.?
I'm done.
But any public comments?
Apart from, my name is Tim. Apart from being Jay's contractor, again, I grew up on Bay Drive. I live on Anastasia, and if Jay had left his hedge there, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So he's not asking to build to the curb, but just a little bit closer than the 10. As a neighbor, I think it's a good idea.
Can I ask you, if he built within 5, give a sidewalk up area?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing, so why don't we just say he can have up to this same fence line to match everybody else, which would still give the city a sidewalk in, or whatever room, so it's like.
With a dead end going into the water.
Except that there's a public park.
Except there's a park.
Right.
And it's public land.
On their fence. Further discussion? Do we have a motion?
I move to motion that the fence be placed adjacent fences.
Wait a minute.
So you're moving to approve the variance.
Yes, with
factors,
stipulations.
all the stipulations, and then you now want to specify the location.
Fences with the addition that the fence be no closer than the other fences.
Well, the other fences aren't code enforced and have,
Starting.
well, they're starting the process, correct?
So is the city gonna move their fence too?
But I did speak again with them again today, and they are working on opening up a case.
I make a motion to deny the variance.
Is there a second on the?
No,
We've
there
got a
wasn't off, so what was the original motion?
The motion he made was, and you'll get to approve the variance with all the conditions. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And then
Which
there
would
was-
allow for a sidewalk or right-of-way passage or whatever is needed.
And then there's a second, and so
I make a motion to deny the variance.
I'll second it.
Public lands.
And I'll second that.
and the motion to deny is based on, you don't believe it meets the requirements. Okay. And you've discussed the substitute motion first, so, and vote on that.
Well, is this really a substitute motion? His motion,
Right, so it's not really a substitute
so
motion,
it's
it's a
more,
primary.
she's just moving to deny it.
Correct.
So I don't have any.
So they would move forward to put a case out, but we're not guaranteed that they will move there.
No logical, they did not get a permit. It'll be just like the last variance where they'll be, decided for work without a permit. They can apply for a permit. If it does not meet our requirements, denied, and then they'll have the two choices of either moving the fence, coming in, or leaving it, and then that goes into the code magistrates with fines and things along those lines. So that would be a third option, I guess. But I see no reason why this would not move forward with code enforcement.
Relations with for variance, and I would second that, but I don't have any feeling or how much.
You're supposed to speak, if you want to allow, you're the chairman, you can allow him to speak further.
Jay, you want to say something?
What, my neighbor's fence, that's absolutely in line with the wooden fence that's there now. I mean, it's a lot further back and wooden fence was. So.
And that's the fence.
City's gonna bring their fence up to compliance.
Again, it's a code enforcement thing on there, so code.
Wise, right? So if we
White sand
is this
is
what we're trying?
part of the city
Yeah,
fence is
whether
really part of
we're
the park.
taking
There's a little bit of city fence in
This
between
much.
my house and
all down the street.
5, maybe 6, 7 feet of. There's a, I think I gave.
So I assumed the drawing is the solid line on C, and it just goes the and ends. City fence start. Am I reading that wrong?
I believe the fence he's proposing, the fence on the old survey that y'all looked at.
Right, so it's gonna come in another.
So if I can clarify,
So can you come show me? I guess I'm lost.
well, let me try to describe it first so it's on the record. But if you see the solid that it runs and then it kind of bows out there, hash marks are on it. That comes back around south in there to the water. That's his property. So his property extends all the way to the water.
Gotcha.
The solid line that runs down there is his property to the right of the property.
There, he was one of the people who started Pan Am Airlines, and he used to fly up.
Here with the little fence post
It's right inside the property
right
line.
inside the property line. You don't like that one.
Right.
Correct.
I need to let everybody know, I think I might, when you do the minutes, the way you can discern right now who is talking.
We do need to. Form actions.
The way that council does it, if you have a comment, they kind of do this to the.
The name.
Yes, and
And Mark,
Understand.
Mr. Simon, trying to
Give a suggestion.
First.
Which one?
it's a motion to deny the variance. That's
So my denial or denial?
if you vote yes, you'll be denying the variance.
Right.
So you want to approve of the variance.
so that.
It,
So
The motion passes 5 to 3.
oh yeah, so it's the motion that the variance is denied. So.
We'll move it on.
Move on. And Mr. Neri would like to talk to you real quick, Amber, about the camera she gave you, if you don't mind giving her a minute. So.
Yes, we can speak offline. Do you need to
Do
talk?
you want to take a?
I just want to ask
Brief
for courtesy, not
Can we take a 5 minute?
Sure.
Mr. Burns, can you please be in on this conversation? I've already sent to Ms. Barnes about this.
so we're at the first ordinance of the night. It's ordinance number 2161, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Fort Walton Beach, Florida, amending the city's comprehensive plan to amend the future land use map for 931 Miracle Strip Parkway Southwest to mixed use MU, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for consistency, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. This is a quasi-legislative hearing, and Mr. Gibson will be presenting the ordinance.
Hey, good evening. So this is for ordinance 2161, and as well, a lot of the background is going to be for 2162. They're separate ordinances, but they're regarding the same properties. The first one is to establish the future land use, and the second one is to establish the zoning for the properties. On July 15th of this year, we did receive a voluntary annexation application for 2 parcels that are located at 931, well, this is incorrect. It's officially addressed right now as 931 East Miracle Strip Parkway. We believe that the official numbering will get changed once it's annexed into the city to be Miracle Strip Parkway Southwest. The request for the voluntary annexation does not come to the LPA, but it will be presented for first reading on October 8th, where the first reading for these 2 ordinances will also be presented. So the request, that annexation request did include a request to amend the comprehensive plan future land use map to a designation of mixed use MU. This is considered to be a small scale amendment process. Our comprehensive plan is approved by the city, by the state. For small scale amendments that are less than 50 acres, those can just be made. They don't actually have to go through a state review for those. Specifics for the property, it is approximately 3.19 acres in size, and it currently has an Okaloosa County future land use designation of MX, which is mixed use, and a current zoning designation of MU, mixed use. The properties around it to the south is water. North of it is a city zone property that is commercial and has a future land use of commercial as well. To the east of the property is, is zoned as MU, future land use of MU mixed use, and is zoned MX2. And to the west is county property that is zoned mixed use, and zoned and future land use of mixed use also. We do believe that the MU land use category, the MU future land use category does allow for the proposed MX2 mixed use high zoning district. So the staff's finding of facts is that the future land use designation of MU is compatible with the surrounding area, that the designation of mixed use is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan and land development code. The process for adoption of the future land use map amendment has been followed. This is not more than 50 acres. It does not involve a text change to the comprehensive plan, and is not located within an area of critical state concern. With that, staff respectfully recommends the local planning agency approve and recommend City Council adoption of ordinance 2161 to amend the city's future land use map designation to the future land use for 931 Miracle Strip Parkway Southwest to MU mixed use. I apologize for stumbling through that.
You're doing great.
A lot of letters.
Who currently owns the property?
I don't have that off the top of my head. Mr. Snyder's here to speak on this, and I'm sure he knows who the property owners are. It's changed hands a few times recently. I don't know off the top of my head, though.
But it's not city property at
No,
this
it's
time?
not. Right now, it's privately owned property that's currently, so the city of Mariester and then the city of Fort Walton Beach, there's 4 parcels that sit between the 2 that are county.
So it's a county property?
It is, yeah. So that it's just
I
one
know.
little enclave of 4 parcels of property. This will take 2 of those 4 parcels and annex them into the city, and then sign the future land use and the zoning for it.
This is the undeveloped stuff right next to the, I don't know what you
Shopping
call
center
that.
of some
The shopping
kind?
center or whatever.
Is this
You
where
know, where
all,
all the professional park, whatever you want to call
is
it.
this where all the trees were taken down at one point and harvested
No,
illegally?
no, I believe that was the property to the north of 90. This is the south of 98. This is right on the water.
Okay, no, I think this is, but, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Was it single-family residential before?
It's been zoned county MU, mixed use, which does allow residential. It's similar to our MU mixed use, that allows for a multitude. It's a wide variety, some residential, some commercial.
It's basically the same, it's the county's version of the same zoning they're asking for.
It's currently
Future
zoned
land.
that?
It's currently, we'll see, they don't have the exact same zoning classifications as the county, but it's the same density, like it's the parallel zoning is what they're asking the city to do.
We just have to establish one because right now it doesn't have a city future land use. It has a county future land use. So when we annex in a property, we have to establish a city future land use and city zoning. It may be very similar to what the county has. So sometimes the county has different ones, like the zoning for this property is MU. The city doesn't have a zoning of MU. We have MX1 and MX2.
But that's the county future.
Right.
What's the existing was residential, that's what I was.
No.
It's
No.
not existing
No, it's
residential.
multi-use.
So all properties just have a future land use and a zoning designation. The existing, it can be a variety of things that are on there, but the key things that are assigned to the property are the future land use and the zoning.
My exhibit B says existing zoning is multi-family residential, it looks like. Maybe I just, my color's off.
Tim, they have come to you and asked to be annexed, correct?
That is correct. There are other processes for annexing properties in, but the most typical one you're going to see are the voluntary annexation.
And why would that be? Tell me why.
A lot of different reasons for it. Sometimes they like, there's different development standards in the city than there are in the county. There's different services provided in the city and the county. A lot of times they have to annex in and develop some of this stuff. There's a variety of reasons they can want to do it. They don't really have to justify to us why they want to. Just when they annex, we do have to do a feasibility study on the annexation to basically look and say, can the city annex this and provide adequate services to it, trash, recycling, utility, water, all that stuff. That is something that's done through the annexation process. Assuming that goes forward, we just have to establish that future land use for it.
So the city would have run like a sewer line, water line to that property if they started building on it?
There's already lines in the area,
Okay.
but that's where that, like I said, during the annexation process, that's what's done and studied in there. Our Public Works Department has to do an analysis of it to see whether or not they can reasonably provide services to that property. And they have done that and decided that they can.
Do you mind if this, Albright, I looked it up for you. It's currently MU with the county.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I can see the colors now, but it's being used as low-density residential. I guess that's what I was confused.
I
Like
don't
the
believe
exhibit
there's
D
any
shows
Exhibit D,
on
existing.
those two properties right now.
This is undeveloped, this is
I
trees.
do believe, I don't,
It's the exhibit D just shows existing land use as, well, I guess it's blank, vacant, but the one next to it is low-density residential.
I believe that is correct, that the other two properties, we're not talking about those ones. They have a future land use of mixed use, I believe, and the zoning as well, the same. They may have a single family residential on those, but we're talking about the two vacant properties that are immediately adjacent to the city.
Okay, because there's like box two of them together, like the.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion if
Well,
there's
we'll wait here for
no more questions.
Mr. Steiner. You want to talk?
I'm Mark Steiner, Choctaw Engineering. We're the agent for the applicant. We submitted the annexation request to bring into the city, and really we have nothing to do with this because the city staff establishes what zoning category that you're going to assign it to, and it just happens to be that the property next door that's in the city has the same exact zoning category, and it's the same, similar to what's in the county. So I think that's kind of the rationale of why it's going to go. So we're not necessarily asking to change this. It's just part of the annexation process that the city has to establish some sort of zoning category to go on this, and that's what the city's proposing.
Thank you, sir.
and then just because the camera doesn't see that there's no one in the room, it's asked for public comment.
Public comments, please. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve ordinance 2161 for annexation.
Second.
If I can clarify, that's recommending approval, or recommending city council.
Council approval.
Recommend city council
Recommendation.
approval.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, motion carries.
So now we're on to ordinance number 2162, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Fort Walton Beach, Florida, provide for authority, provide for findings of fact, provide for property described as 931 Miracle Strip Parkway Southwest, more particularly described in the body of the ordinance to be zoned MX2 Mixed Use High Zoning District, providing for the amendment of the effective portion of the official zoning map, providing for separability, and providing for an effective date. This is a quasi-legislative hearing, and Mr. Gibson's here to present on behalf of staff.
Right, so this is the same property, so I'm not going to go into all the background unless you have more questions on this one. There are some requirements in section 2.1.5 of the code that have to be discussed for determining an appropriate zoning district. The first is whether or not the district is consistent with the future land use category, and the MX2 is appropriate for the MU future land use category that we just had the ordinance for to discuss there. Next is whether uses within the requested zoning district are compatible with uses in adjacent zoning districts. And as we discussed, as far as the specific zoning, this is the same zoning that the city has, not only with the adjacent property, but all of our waterfront properties along that area, all the way to the bridge until you start getting up into Brook Street and the neighborhoods. Everything along there is either zoned MX2, mixed use high, recreation, or community facilities. That's the only thing that is on there. So every property that's not a church or a park is zoned as MX2 along that area. Whether or not the requested use is substantially more intense or less intense than the allowable development on adjacent parcels. Again, everything else along Miracle Strip there is MX2. To the north of Miracle Strip is commercial properties that is often viewed as more intense than the mixed use 2. So staff does believe that this would be compatible with that. And the next goes into whether or not it's based on soil types, topography, protection, and formally proposed with this property. So that's just something that would be addressed in the future through the development order process when they do look to formally develop the property on there. We did review it, and it does not indicate that there's any wetlands or archaeologically sensitive areas present on the property there. But again, that would all be addressed specifically through the development order process. And with that, staff does find that the proposed zoning is consistent with the proposed future land use, that the requested zoning districts is compatible with the uses in the adjacent zoning districts, that is not substantially more or intense or less intense than the adjacent properties. And staff respectfully recommends local planning agencies approval or recommend city council adoption of ordinance 2162 to designate the zoning for 931 Miracle Strip Parkway Southwest as mixed use high MX2, and this ordinance will be contingent upon approval of the future land use ordinance.
I'd like to make a motion to,
Do we not know what, so you said there's no plans for any development?
We've had some discussion with the owners and stuff. We've had multiple discussions with multiple potential owners of the property over the years. Ultimately, I mean, right now, the latest proposal, I believe, is going to be like a high-end RV park and a marina on the property. But I do want to stress that, you know, that's really, I won't say irrelevant to this discussion, because the zoning is what establishes what's allowed there. Just because that's the proposal or the thought on the table right now, that doesn't say that that's what's going to be done there. So really, this is all about the zoning district and what's allowed in those zoning districts with the MX2. So again, that's on that, but again, it doesn't guarantee that that is what will go in there.
no.
All right. Any further? We have a motion and second.
Public comments.
Public comments?
Sorry, I didn't catch the second.
I am.
okay, so
And motion carries. All right, moving on. Thank you.
All right, ordinance number 2164, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Fort Walton Beach, Florida, amending the city's comprehensive plan to amend the future land use map for 3 Wedgewood Lane Northeast low-density residential LDR, provide for authority, provide for findings of fact, provide for consistency, provide for severability, provide for an effective date. This is a quasi-legislative hearing, and Mr. Gibson is here to present on behalf of staff.
Right, so this is a very similar one. On August 26, 2024, Growth Management Department received a voluntary application to annex 3 Wedgewood Lane Northeast into the city limits of the city of Fort Walton Beach. Right now, that property is a vacant property. It's fairly unique in that it is completely surrounded by city. As with the last one, this does require us to establish a future land use and a zoning for that property. So that property is approximately 0.35 acres. It currently has an Okaloosa County future land use designation of low density residential and a zoning designation of residential 1 or single family residential zoning of R1. As I said, it is proposing the LDR low density residential future land use, and in the next ordinance we'll be recommending the R1 zoning district for it. With that, staff does find that the proposed flume designation of LDR is compatible with the surrounding area, that it is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, and the city has all the requirements in section 163.3164, 3 and 5 of the Florida statutes, that this is less than 50 acres and does not involve a text change to this comprehensive plan, and that this is not located within an area of critical state concern. And with that, staff respectfully recommends local planning agency's approval to recommend City Council adoption of ordinance number 2164 to amend the to designate the future land use for 3 Wedgewood Lane Northeast as low density residential LDR.
Do you know where he got that? He does those commercials that talk so fast that you
Like listen to the side effects.
There's just a few pockets. I'd like to bring forward 2164 ordinance to the City Council for approval.
A second.
Any public comment?
Well, public comments, nothing heard.
Spoke.
I want a camera back here.
Try to make sure there's no one here.
Rock on. Next.
See, I'm looking out because if someday someone comes up here and says, we were not letting the public speak.
Oh, I understand. The legality of it.
So ordinance number 2165, an ordinance of the City Council of Walton Beach, Florida, provide for authority, provide for findings of fact, property described in Lane Northeast, more particularly described in the body of the ordinance to be zoned R1 single family residential zoning district, providing for the amendment of the effective portion of the official zoning map, providing for a quasi-legislative hearing. Mr. Gibson is presenting on behalf of staff.
All right, so again, this is the same property. If you have more questions on the background, I can go into it, but if not, I'm going to jump into the requirements in our code for establishing a zoning district. First is whether or not it's consistent with the future land use category. As we just discussed, it's going to be established as LDR future land use. R1 is an acceptable zoning district. Whether or not it's compatible with the uses in adjacent zoning districts, and as we've discussed, it's completely surrounded by R1 zoned properties. Whether or not the request use is substantially more intense or less than allowable development on adjacent parcels. Again, everything is R1 out there. And then whether or not the resource or request based on soil types, topography, protection of natural resources, and protection. There is a typo on this one, and I apologize for that one. It does mention in here that it will go through the city's development order process. As the single family residential process, it does not go through development order process. It will go through the building permit process only on that one, but everything will be addressed at that time. With that, staff does find that the zoning is consistent with the proposed future land use category, that it is the zoning district is compatible with use in adjacent zoning districts, that it is not substantially more intense or less intense than available developments on adjacent parcels, and staff does respectfully recommend local planning agency approval to recommend City Council adoption of ordinance 2165 to designate the zoning for 3 Wedgewood Lane Northeast as single-family residential R1. And just like the last one, this one will be contingent upon ordinance 2164 to the future land use and also the actual annexation.
Discussion.
Make a motion to move to City Council for approval.
And second?
Any public comment?
Put that in here.
Okay, we're cooking now here.
All right.
Okay, this is time for y'all to chair and the vice chair, the LPA.
After a 2-hour LPA, this is probably the worst time to bring up these elections.
Pressure does
but,
to start.
It is how it's out here. So yeah, each year, the LPA shall elect a chairperson and a vice chair from amongst its members to serve as officers of the board. The chair and vice chair term shall be for 1 year. Officers may serve up to 2 consecutive 1-year terms. There is a requirement that you have been on the board for 1 year before you can serve as a chair or vice chair. Both of our chair and vice chair have only served 1 full term and are elected again if they are so nominated and willing to serve as such. And so with that, staff respectfully recommends the local planning agency nominate and vote for a chair or vice chair to serve from January 2025 through December 2025.
I guess discussion, I will serve again if you so would like.
And I will serve also.
Sounds good.
I love it.
Now, you'll need to make a separate motion for each one
Oh,
of
we
them.
can't go together?
You can't, I'm sorry.
So can we make it?
I will
You
make a
can make,
motion.
you can make a motion.
I will
second.
make a motion that we keep the chair.
I
as-
second.
Okay.
Do you want to do?
Do we have a second for that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Wait, so this is for the chair and the vice chair?
We're
No,
doing it
just
chair.
Just
chair.
the chair and then.
One at a time.
Then we'll do the vice chair.
So, okay.
Public comments?
Actually, on that one,
Of
that's
course.
covered at the start. That's the one that covered at the start, so.
It's all training.
Almost had it.
All right, then I will make the motion that we keep Sam Kincaid as the vice chair.
I second that. She's all right, we'll keep her around.
Should I?
Y'all are so good to me.
Nope, my bad. That was,
Who was the second?
that was me. I clicked too fast.
Oh. Okay, well, who made the motion? They need to second it then.
Oh, I did, oh, you,
Okay, there you go.
okay.
There's more than one way to get this done, y'all.
It'll work.
That works.
All right, motion carries. Congratulations.
Me too.
Thank you. All right, planning supervisor reports.
None.
Board member reports. Anybody?
This was a long meeting.
This was a long meeting. I have no report.
Well, nothing to mention it.
I guess since we do have a new member, it's probably the annual time to do the ethics presentation that I did last year. Should we do that maybe in December? Are you doing a December meeting?
Anything on the books for November or December, or I mean, anything coming forward,
Let's not do
realistically.
December.
I was working with Amber previously. We are missing photos for some of the members, especially the new ones. The next meeting will coordinate that to ensure we get you a little bit early and we get our city photographer in to take those pictures. And we can coordinate for the next one, and I'll work with you on when the next meeting is going to be.
Okay.
So you can prepare for that. But we'll-
And I'll bring food like I did
Thank
last year.
you.
So.
I have a quick question. So I've been here for quite some time, and we always go through this board member reports, and there's nothing ever discussed. What is this usually used for?
We talked about that before. It's really just an opportunity for you, if there's something you want to discuss, you see something in the city that you're concerned about, you see something, or, if there's a process that you don't like how it's working up here, it's really kind of your moment to speak your mind if you have anything on your mind at all about that.
We mentioned in the past that
I might have been gone.
time for the disclosure forms and stuff like that.
If not, I have his direct number.
Oh yeah, I usually just call him. But I
I
do
guess
like.
in theory, if y'all made some sort of motion on a report, it would go to the council and they would hear what you wanted them to
Okay.
know.
So I do have something to bring up, and it's gonna be quick. So I'm seeing an uptick of boat storage coming into the city because Destin proper has banned boat storage on the streets. But I'm starting to see an uptick, there's been several of them popping up around vacant lots. And a lot of these are not even zoned for anything that we plan on doing?
And that's gonna be a code enforcement issue. I will say that, probably for the last month, at least once a week, I get one of our code enforcement inspectors that comes and asks me about a property and whether or not those are allowed to be stored on there. Code enforcement is aware of it, and they're engaging with those property owners. I can't really speak to the process or what exactly is going on with it. I just know that they do come and check with me, on what is required on it.
Tim, is there a maximum number of boats that you can store on a personal property? Because that's another issue in my neighborhood.
We kind of established a code enforcement hearing a couple months ago on the livery case, and there was nothing in writing with the city, but I think we came to the conclusion you can have maybe like 2 boats on your property, because you could have 2 personal watercraft, basically, and max.
Because I can actually, you can drive down Beale right now, and there's on the property on 103 Beale, there is Destin Party Bus, 3 party buses parked on that property, some trailers, and 4 boats. So,
And you can park them anywhere you want, like you don't have to have special parking, you just put them in the
But
front
it's-
yard and the.
yeah, it's a residential. It's zoned residential, I believe. And they're just
Yeah, the dry storage of the watercraft is something we specifically do. I'm not sure exact property or what the exact zoning of that one is. We do have allowable for vehicle parking locations and stuff, so some people who want to maybe store a trailer or a party bus or some things like that, there's different requirements for that than the dry storage of watercraft. But if that's going to be done like in a commercial manner, that's only allowed in certain zoning districts and there's supplemental standards. For example, the boats have to be screened from public view. There's restrictions on what they can do, like maintenance on the boats on those locations and stuff. So there's separate requirements for the boats, the boat storage, than there is for the vehicles.
Well, it's an issue in the city.
Is that
without a doubt.
matter if it's on their own property? Like does that matter if it's on their own property? Like Beach Weekend, for example. They store theirs right out in front right along 98.
But that's commercial.
That's commercial.
So,
They have a development agreement
I mean,
with the
as
city.
far as the
too.
fence.
right. And that's where the boat storage is allowed in commercial or MX2 zone properties. They do have to screen them and everything.
That's what I was talking about,
That
the
is
storage.
regardless of the zoning district, that's for dry storage of watercraft. We do run into some issues, we have a marina and a boat yard and boat sales and stuff like that. So certain ones that are water dependent, those specific designations, by nature of what it is, there's going to be boats on there, and the city's aware of that. The bigger concern is just these empty lots that just have boats piled all over them, and some things like that.
Or houses that suddenly have 6 boats,
Right.
like that one case. And
That are all commercially marked and some things like that. That's where it gets more concerning.
All right. Anybody else?
See, I rate them don'ts.
Speak down, forever hold your peace. All right. You're adjourned.